Hey YouTube, this is Archangel for Truth, and today I wanted to talk about equal protection under the law. It's called the 14th Amendment. Now, the government says that you have an equal protection under the law, and that it's going to protect that interest. But seeing all the corruption that we have within government, can we really say that there is such thing as an equal protection under the law? If we look at all the underhanded things that are going on, such as with Hillary Clinton and with James Comey and varying individuals within the varying levels of the government, if we did any of these things, we would be arrested, thrown into jail, and without any delay. But when individuals high within the government commit these varying violations, they're treated differently. So how can there be an equal protection under the law when individuals that function in a capacity of government are treated with greater deference and given what is called immunity? Immunity when they violate your rights. This is a big problem because, especially within law enforcement, there are individuals who have either killed people or violated people's rights in a variety of ways and are given this out called qualified immunity. But if you did those things, the very same things, just because you don't have that badge or you're not within law enforcement or not in any governmental position, you don't have that. So I believe any government individual within any position or so forth should be held accountable to the very people that they serve. I believe that immunity should be abolished. That if you choose to be in government, to work in government, what could be as a president, it could be as a governor, it could be as a senator, or law enforcement, whatever capacity you so choose to work in government, that you do not get any sort of special protection from the violations of people's rights. Because if you have that, there is no such thing as equal protection under the law. That's just one small area, although it does cover a large issue. And I want to be sure to point out, it doesn't matter whether you're Democratic or Republican, either side of the fence, if you will, are corrupt. And ultimately, I don't agree with either, and I don't participate with either. See, there are individuals who are known as sovereign constitutionalists. I'm a sovereign constitutionalist. I am not a sovereign citizen, as is misidentified by so many anti sovereign people. But I am a sovereign constitutionalist. So, what does that mean, sovereign constitutionalist? It means that my rights, my inalienable rights, are sovereign to me. They are endowed upon me not by a government, but rather by my Creator. All people have these sovereign rights. And the government that is formed by people, whether it be in America or any other government, are only the creation of man. So men decide to establish a varying body of individuals to wield authority over other men. And the problem that creates is it's a direct violation to the Equal Protection Clause. How is that possible where individuals within government are allowed certain things, but you are not? For example, when you see a police officer and he has a sidearm, you're not bothered by that because you know that that sidearm there is to protect people and to protect himself. But what about when you choose to have a sidearm? Do you have that same equal protection to keep and bear arms? Or has the state that you're in used its regulation to infringe upon your rights? So, if the state that you're in, and I use the word state very loosely because, again, what is a state? Nothing more than the figments of the imagination of men. If you look at a map, there is no such thing as a state, and when it comes down to it, there is no such thing as countries. There are continents, yes, absolutely, but there's no such thing as countries or states except for in the minds of men. These countries and states were formed at a certain point in time by men, and they will also, in time, be diminished as nothing. And this is what individuals that are anti-sovereign don't seem to understand. They were born into a system of belief, and therefore, because they have lived in it, since they have smelt it and they have experienced a representation of it, they believe it to be 100% absolutely true. But it's not. And so, why I chose equal protection under the law to address is because it's a lie. It is a lie that the government tells you, but does not hold equally to itself. And so, individuals within government who have violated people's rights are not held accountable. And police officers or law enforcement who violate people's inalienable rights are not held accountable. Now, there is what is called a 1984 cause of action against law enforcement, which can be fought in their system of regulations. But the odds of your winning against them are overwhelmingly in the favor of them and not you. So, for example, if you're taking a police officer to court over a 1984 cause of action, or anyone within government, not only is the judge there already being paid by the state or the federal government, depending on which you go to, he's paid by them, and generally speaking, the attorneys on the other side are going to be paid by them, and even that law enforcement individual or person within government are also all going to be paid and part of the same system that you are now trying to adjudicate against them. And most times it's not going to work out because they've designed the system to be against you. But the original purpose of government, as so described in the Declaration of Independence, stipulates that the purpose of government is to protect our rights. The purpose of government was never established to regulate your rights. That came later on, but that's a whole nother argument. Ultimately, my point to you is this. The government, in its varying form, whether it be the federal or the state, has declared war against your inalienable rights, even though on some level it recognizes that you do have inalienable rights. When push comes to shove, they will violate your inalienable rights in favor of regulations. So the perfect case in point is your ability to protect yourself with a firearm in a public place. Other case in point would be they have these new checkpoints where they want to know whether or not you're a citizen or not. And you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to answer their questions. But the moment you stand on your rights, that's when the equal protection under the law goes right out the door. So there are many things I can say about this topic, and many areas of argument that certainly can be addressed. But as pertains to your rights, you are given by your Creator inalienable rights. Now, the Constitution addresses these rights in the Bill of Rights, under the Ninth Amendment. Under the Ninth Amendment, it says that you have certain rights that are not enumerated, and that these rights shall not be denied or disparaged. One of those rights is for you to be able to travel in whatever capacity you so choose. Now, I already know all the anti-sovereigns out there will say, oh, you don't have a right to do this. States have the right to regulate and this and this and that. I'm sorry, but you're very much mistaken. Because the 10th Amendment that you will rely upon to establish state regulation doesn't simply apply to states alone. But if you look closely at the 10th Amendment, it includes or to the people. This is something that the Supreme Court has ignored. This is something that states have ignored. This is something that even those within law enforcement are completely clueless about. But if we see the contract of the Constitution as what it is, and the purpose for government as what it is, then ultimately we are left with a contract that has been breached by the government in favor of converting your rights into regulations. And regardless of whatever court, Supreme Court, can interpret that in any capacity they want. Because, let's face it, they have built an economic governmental system all based upon you being subservient to the government. And there is no accountability towards them. So, I don't like to keep these videos going on too long. I prefer to keep them within 20 minutes, so we're getting about there. So, if you have any question or comments, please, by all means, make them. Whether or not you agree or disagree with me is just fine. I believe you have the right to express yourself just as I am doing as well. I don't hide people's comments if they so choose to make them. You have the right to freely express yourself. I would appreciate people liking and subscribing to this channel if you agree to this. I appreciate it. So, choose to be free. Recognize your sovereignty and recognize you have rights. The government is only the figment of the imagination of men. With that, I say, God bless and take care.